Assignment 1 for PLCs. This assignment is issued today, which is Wednesday the 6th, I think, or the 5th of October, not the 7th. I don't know where I went wrong there, but we didn't worry too much about it. And it's due in on Wednesday the 2nd of November, which is 4 weeks' time as of this day. It will be due on 23:59 on that date, and you'll hand in the Learn, the online submission system, and I'll show you where the assignment is when I finish going through it, and for the two new lads that haven't done that before. So this assignment is a technical assistance report around the design, architecture, operation, interfacing and communications with PLCs, and it covers those two learning outcomes at the bottom there, LO1 and LO2. Explain the design, architecture, operational characteristics of PLCs and their interface to the systems they control. It's learning outcome 1. Learning outcome 2 is the network and learning outcome, so communication between PC and PLC and between PLCs, as well as the human-machine interface and SCADA software. Okay, so that is the content of this. This is worth 40% of the overall mark for the module. The other assignment is worth 60%. So it's weighted towards the second assignment. On the next page is your key to how each of the grades can be achieved. The grading matrix. And sometimes it's quite evident to me as a marker that the student ain't gone anywhere near the grade matrix because they've missed bits out, they haven't covered certain things. What this does is give you an indication of the standard you need to reach in each of the areas I'm kind of looking at in the tasks that I've set you to achieve either the distinction, merit or pass grades, or what might be considered to be a marginal or a full fail. So along the left hand side, assignment attribute 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're going to evaluate the design and architecture, you're going to analyse the way PLCs interface with our outside world, you're going to analyse the communication standards, talk about SCADA and HMI, and investigate field bus technologies. That are 5 technical things that you're going to do in your report in general. And then the other 2 things are kind of standard things about the quality of your background reading, your research, and then lastly the overall presentation of your report and how well you reference the work that you've read. Okay, so those bottom 2 are kind of standard for all assignments really, certainly the ones that I write, as we look at the quality of the report in terms of layout, the English used, the grammar used, and so on, spelling mistakes. So they'll be marked down in that area if you don't write particularly well. Okay, and then if you look across those, you can see how you get a particular level. So if we look along the second line on analysing the ways in which PLCs interface, and my 2 friends down the bottom here have already noticed outstanding levels of analysis for all aspects of PLC interfacing with control systems. It's kind of like you're almost gone beyond where I might expect you to if you're going to get into that, push into the high ends of that area. Yeah. If you're a merit, it says excellent levels of analysis for all aspects of PLCs interfacing with control systems. You'll have done everything I would expect you to do in light of the question being asked, what's been taught, and what I would expect you to read up about at this level. Pass, majority of the aspects of PLC interfacing with control systems are analysed to a very good level, but some aspects may contain ambiguity or lack of detail. Marginal fail, some aspects are okay, analysed to a good level, but the report lacks analysis and or detail in key areas. So there's some real key information missing for you to get a mark in that area, on that aspect. And if you think about it, if you only dip into that area once, because I'm doing a grade over all these things, you're unlikely to get an overall marginal fail. You're only going to get an overall marginal fail if the majority of your work is in that area. Because I'm going to be, when I look at this and your work, I'm going to go, oh, he's in there for that one, he's in there for that one, he's back here for this one. And overall, what's the kind of average? So you've got to dip into marginal fail or fail a lot to actually end up getting that grade, in essence. Okay? And then the fail is that some technical aspects, so marginal fail, some technical aspects have been covered, but the report lacks detail in key areas. For the overall fail, technical aspects of PLC interfacing and control systems have not been analysed, or a significant lack of detail across large parts of the explanation. And if that means you haven't covered the learning outcomes, then you have to fail it, because you've got to cover all learning outcomes. Yep. Okay? Because 1 and 2, if you look at 1 and 2, they kind of attach to learning outcome 1, explain the design, architecture and operational characteristics. Items 3, 4 and 5 cover learning outcome 2. So again, I've got to look in those two areas and say, can I overall pass you in both the first two sections and the second 3, so that you've covered both learning outcomes associated with this assignment. So the marking process isn't a simple one, but if you look at this and make sure you cover everything to a certain standard, then at least you're not really going to be slipping into that bottom area anyway. Okay? And I mean, there's a first time for everything, but I've not referred anybody since I've done this for the first year. I did refer a couple of people the first year, but that generally don't end up giving people fail or referral in this module. Okay? So moving on to the content of the actual assignment, because I don't propose to go through every box on that grade matrix. This assignment is about you taking the position of somebody who's knowledgeable or can research PLCs, you're going to research them, and write a short report of technical assistance to an engineering manager that's got some slightly outdated electrical knowledge but doesn't know anything particular about PLCs. That's for a company that make food packaging. They've got outdated machinery using relays and stuff, and they want to look into with the possibility of upgrading to PLC controls. So this person you're writing the report for, and you should also always have the audience of your report in mind when you write it, will not understand any technical PLC kind of terms, and therefore anything PLC specific will need to be explained in layman's terms that any ordinary person might understand with a little bit of kind of technical knowledge. Okay, so you need to be careful about explaining any new terms in this report. So read that scenario carefully, and then what you're being asked to do is a range of different tasks. First of all, about the design and architecture and operation of PLCs. So in that first section, you've been asked to write a short piece about the 3 general types, or the different types of PLC there are out there, which we've been through in class. Explaining the essential design features and differences of each, advantages and disadvantages, and so on. And that's important point of anything where you're analysing, is that you have a balanced argument. You consider both advantages and disadvantages. So many times I see a student's kind of made their mind up about this is what I'm going to have, and they talk about all the advantages of that, and this is what I don't want. They talk about all the disadvantages of that, and they haven't got a balanced argument on both of them. because everything that you might look at has got its advantages and disadvantages, and whether they're important or not will depend upon what you're looking to use them for. Yep. For instance, your rack-mounted PLC, biggest advantage is the flexibility in different modules available. But is that an advantage for something that's only 4 little motors controlled by a couple of relays? Would you spend £1,500 on a rack-mounted PLC? No. But if your system requires it, then that's an advantage. But if in that other application, the high cost is a massive disadvantage. So you need to be balanced. You should talk about typical uses for each type and kind of justifying those selections. And then the last little bit in that section is you talking through the PLC scan process and what the implications of that are, which we've been through in class. So it's about you putting your stamp on the way you explain that. Part B, interfacing with the control systems. So here I'm asking you to talk about how the PLC gets information from the outside world and controls the outside world. It's about the inputs and outputs. So talking about different method types, mechanically operated switches, electronic type and analog inputs, and then explaining the difference between the two types of relay and transistor output, what advantages and disadvantages each of them have. I'm going to go through in detail a little bit about different input devices and how the analog inputs work in today's lesson. Next week, the up here bit will major on the communications, although I'm going to kind of quite skim over that, and that's going to be the larger research part of what you do in this assignment. Leave that a little bit more open, that last bit. So that covers learning outcome 1. Then we move on to the communications bit, which is where you're going to largely do, I'm going to briefly cover it, but you're largely going to do your own research in this area. It's about how the PLCs communicate with each other. There's 3 common standards, RS422, RS485 and USB. Create a table that summarises the key performance data for these 3 standards, and it might include, and that means you can go out wider than this list, the mode of operation, is it single-ended or differential, and you would need to explain what those terms mean if you include them, maximum allowable cable length, and the maximum data rate, and what affects the data rate. B is about HMIs and SCADA, explaining what the terms mean, how those might fit in with the automated control of the factory situation described up front. So on the surface, HMIs and SCADA look very similar, and actually they do quite a different task. But it's about getting information from the system and having centralized control in some cases, but operator access to change timers, temperatures and other parameters and read information off. So there's 2 different systems that kind of initially, like I say, on the surface look as though they do exactly the same job, and actually they don't do exactly the same job. And lastly, field bus networks. So that part is asking you to provide a summary of what field bus does, and using 2 typical example uses, explain how it works or what it can do. Okay, that's going to be left quite open for you to research that area and come up with something from reading magazine, manufacturers' websites probably, and other information about those technologies, books. All right. So moving on from that, there's some general requirements, 2,200 to 2,500 words, excluding the contents page and anything you put in appendices, which should be only additional support and information. Anything appendices will only be put under, oh yeah, that's in the appendix, that's extra information. If there's analysis in there, that won't get read. You should make your work in Times New Roman or Arial for best read, size 12, 1.5 line space, and it creates a little bit of white space and makes the work look that much neater. Okay, any figures, diagrams, tables should be properly titled and then referred to in your text. As you can see in table 6, it shows this, this and this. If it's not referred to, shouldn't be there anyway. It's not serving any purpose. Okay, if you refer to another part of your report, forward or backwards, give me a page number, section number, and what page it's on. If you refer to an appendix, tell me what page number. I don't want to be hunting for it. That'll all help your mark for the navigation and the quality of your report. If I've got to hunt for stuff, I'm going to mark you down. Okay? So that is assignment 1, due in 4 weeks' time. Yes. I'm going to go through how you get there, just to help Jack and Caleb as well. The rest of you have already been here. But if you Google Learn UCS, ironically, although it's changed from UCS, you can still get there by typing in Learn UCS. Get this Blackboard Learn link up. I'm already logged in, but you log into that with your S number and password. Have you been on here? Yeah, Jack? Sorry? You can't. You probably need, have you got your S number?